contrast. It's
well, you can definitely see how, you know, Texas was probably this state with quite arable land and quite fertile land, lots of animals, etc., etc., cowboys, and then the whole oil business has changed, probably changed half the scene, and then all of a sudden you have this downtown, these tall buildings with like lots of business and lots of money. So the people still have the mentality of living off the land on a very farming basis, and then it's as if overnight in the last, I don't know exactly, but in the last 20, 30 years, that there's been this big boom, this large business boom, and in a way one expects these people that having quite simple basic lives, just going around doing their own thing and running farms, etc., and all of a sudden they've got to control the big business. And that's what's very strange about the whole of America. It's quite interesting though, especially when you're flying over and you're flying into these cities. It's, one can perceive it, it's so clear that how it's all grown. Because it's I suppose in a way it's wonderful how these cities have just grown in like a couple of 100 years. For instance, like you've got San Francisco and you can really see how people arrived on the boats to this port, and a few houses, you have a few houses, and how it's just spread right out. But basically they're in, especially in California, they're living in the middle of the desert, which is bizarre. These people are meant to live civilised 20th century lives when only 200 years ago people were still building their houses with mud and still do build their houses with mud. He lives here in Fort Worth, and we were trying to get a general view or aspect of Dallas, Texas, before we sort of were thrown in the deep end, because it's always quite nice to know. I mean, it's as if one would say to us, well, what's London like? And we would tell you a general view of London. But she was saying that Texas was quite violent, and there was a lot of crime, and probably more murders than any other state in America, and we were really shocked. And yet, 92% of the population goes to church. And so you do wonder if there's a very strong parallel between the Christian church and all this violence, because the Christians have this total thing about always being right, you know, them being Puritans. And yet you have these people like Jimmy Swaggart. I mean, if he isn't the biggest sick joke in America, and then one of the most frightening things is that people still believe in him and still believe in the work that he's doing, because he's a good Christian.
Now, what's wrong with Jimmy Swaggart?
Oh, nothing. He's a good, clean guy. You know, I imagine there's nothing more wrong with Jimmy Swaggart.
What are your thoughts on the whole evangelical? You mentioned earlier that, in a nutshell, do you find the whole thing totally ridiculous?
I think it's absolutely sick, because people in general, we're not Christians by history. We're pagans, and as you probably know, that most of the Christian festivals are only set up around the times of pagan festivals, like Christmas. When the Christians celebrate Christmas, it's actually the winter equinox, and then you have the spring equinox that falls in with Easter. So what the Christians did was they came along and they took over all the festivals that the pagans had. and even Christmas trees were actually pagan because they were signs of fertility, and that's what they used. And articulately, I really can't put into words what I think about the Christians. Maybe it's because I have no respect for them. You know, and as I said before, I think the way that the churches control people is that they're controlling these people with huge hang-ups and huge insecurities. And it's all a cover, because it's as if, really Marx was brilliant when he said, like, you know, Christianity be the opiate of the masses, because really it works. The working classes and the poor people can basically sit back and receive their life, if you'd like to say, as if, well, we are suffering now and we have poor housing and we haven't got a job, and I know my daughter's, you know, my child's just died of a disease because I didn't have enough money to take to the doctors, etc., etc. But, you know, praise the Lord, and He knows best, and when we die then we'll go straight to heaven, etc., etc. So it works. Christianity in the government is an integration of just controlling forces, and I think it's very sad that people don't realise that. They believe that that is the be-all and the end-all, and it's so hypocritical as well. I mean, as we say, like Jimmy Swaggart, I don't think that there's anything. The only thing wrong with Jimmy Swaggart is that he's professing that he is a Christian and he knows best. And whoops, what